Hello, it's episode 49. Every time we start an episode, it's just like us laughing about the number that it is. Anyway, today we're talking about Mack. Is it legit called Mack, or do you just say that for the bands? Or is it just called Mack?
I mean, so everyone knows it as Mack, right? It is a German company, and
how do you spell it? M-A-C-K.
K. Yeah.
So Mack.
Yeah.
But then if you say it in German, it's Mach.
Yeah, pretty much. I think Taylor Co-Studios went to see the Mack factory.
Whoa.
No, they went to see the Mack factory, and he came out saying that it is, Mack.
That's how they all say it?
Yeah.
Okay, so to everyone else, it's just like Mack.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because we're not going to be doing accents.
It's a lot easier to say than Mack.
Anyway, it's a manufacturer, in case you didn't know.
Yes.
A manufacturer of many rides?
Kind of. I mean, I feel like they're in the middle of offering between everything and nothing.
Okay.
If that makes sense. But I mean, most manufacturers are more in the middle, but I feel like Mack's like slap bang in the middle of, they offer quite a lot, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really more recently that they've started to expand more. And we'll get to that. But I mean, what do you know about
Mack?
Yeah.
I think they made Helix.
They did.
Which is my favourite ride, so I know what they do in terms of I know what Helix is like, but I don't really know what else they do or what other rides there are. But then as soon as you say some, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a Mack ride,
Yeah, I mean, until recently, they weren't really known for building big roller coasters, and there wasn't a lot. And that's more of a recent thing that they've begun to build larger, more thrilling rides like Helix. Helix was built in 2014, which, I don't know, it was 6-7 years ago now, but in relative industry terms, it's pretty new.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think they're more known by most people for a certain key few models. And mainly those are the Wild Mouse, the Mack Wild Mouse.
Oh, yeah.
The Mack Bobsled Coaster.
Oh, yeah.
And the Mack Powered Coaster.
Don't know what that is.
Runaway Mine Train.
Okay.
All of the powered mine train coasters.
Right.
Most of them are Mack.
Mm-hmm.
The good majority of them are Mack. So those are the kind of three core ones. And those were evidently three of the first things that they started to produce.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously why it became so popular.
So they started out making smaller family/kid coasters, and that's all they really did.
At the start, I mean, so one thing to note is that Mack as a company has existed for over 235 years.
What?
They founded in 1780, and used to construct wagons, transport wagons.
Oh.
So just wooden things on wheels.
Yeah.
Then they got into stagecoaches and carriages, and kind of all of that ends of the business. And they found themselves building carriages for showmen and circus entrepreneurs, who was obviously take their attractions around. So they'd be stored in
travelling
these
circuses, train carriages.
So they'd be stored in some of these, and then they from that got into supplying horses and carriages for fairground carousels.
Horses and carriages. So they sell you a horse and a carriage together?
Yeah, to put on the carousel.
What?
And I think it's through that whole connection they started to produce rides.
So they started out as a transport company in the olden days.
Yeah.
And then, because they got into circus...
Well, they would produce things for circus.
They got into the attractions business.
Yeah.
That is madness.
Mm-hmm.
So they were at the forefront of roller coasters coming in.
Yeah, kind of. 1921 was the first time they produced a roller coaster.
Wow.
Which was relatively early in terms of...
Yeah, that's
companies
pretty mad.
Were around then. There aren't many
that are still around today.
Yeah, exactly.
That's insane.
I mean, most of the wooden coasters in that era were designed by a random person and built by
because it wasn't really a thing yet.
Yeah, exactly. The local kind of construction company. So for Mack to be designing and building rides, even
they were
as
ahead
early
of the
as
game, man.
yeah, they were. And that was a wooden side friction coaster for German showmen.
Okay.
Who would take their ride around.
So a travelling coaster?
I think so, yeah. And obviously that's how they got started building coasters. But the amusement industry didn't really take off a whole lot until later.
Well, until like steel came in, right?
Kind of, but kind of not. They produced car rides. You know, your like average car that kids not drive, but just like it's on a track and it goes round a nice little course.
Okay, yeah.
Produced those in 1936 and wooden bobsled coasters in 1951. And around that time they began to...
So hold on. So from 1920 or 12, was it? 1912?
1921.
21 to the 50s, they're like just making little car rides.
I don't know what they do.
But they were like properly producing these things. Like that was their only business. They weren't doing the transport stuff anymore.
Well, they might have been. I don't know.
That is just insane that there was like that much going on.
Well, there's probably quite a lot of money in it. If you're, one of the only companies around at the time, then to produce these rides, pretty good. They were started to export more to the US and everything as well. So they definitely had traction. And then the 1950s and 60s saw the wooden wild mouse become popular, like the one at Blackpool, stuff like that. And they started selling more of those. And then we get into the more interesting phase of Mack, which is the Mack we know today, really. So Mack's a family company, right? It's like family owned. It's owned by the Mack family.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
So one of the Mack family, Franz Mack, went over to America and just went to some theme parks in America. And after going there, you know what he wanted? He wanted his own theme park, because everyone does that. They go to America, they go to Disney, and they go, I want my own park now.
I want to be Walt Disney now.
Well, kind of. So yeah, he just wanted his own park, like they all do. I'm pretty sure that's the backstory to like 200 billion theme parks or whatever. It's just, very generic. The only twist with this is, normally that's a person who then starts their own theme park. Just an average person. Yeah. This is a roller coaster manufacturer who wanted to start their own theme park so that they could put their rides in it and show people this is what we can do. Yeah. Right? So they wanted to make it as a show floor for new Mack products.
That's like a really smart idea.
Kind of.
If you do it well and it's like a cool park where people want to go to it.
Yeah.
Then having that as like your
kind of
sample.
But then the problem that you face is that your park becomes filled with the worst types of that roller coaster or that ride. Why the worst? Because it's the first one. Because it's the first one. Yeah. Bluefire, hands down the worst of the Mack Rise launch coasters, surely. Or if not one of. So definitely.
What? So you're telling me they just went, okay, we're going to do this ride now, this model. So let's build one at the park.
Not always.
Okay.
I think that was the idea at the start, but
because why would you do that? Surely you'd build a test and then build another one.
Yeah, you would. You'd go through feasibility testing first, which would be a whole separate stage, and then you'd build. But I mean, in the amusement industry, you still class kind of like you might build a prototype section, but you won't build a whole prototype ride until you build the first one. Yeah. So some parks still has to get that first of the kind ride. At least if you're building at your own park, you can iron out the issues, and you don't have to deal with a park being upset that your ride doesn't work properly. True, but then like you say, your theme park just becomes like rubbish. Yeah. I mean, and that's, I think the Europa Park, obviously, we didn't even say, right, but that's Europa Park. Mm-hmm. They wanted to build their own theme park near the company's factory to test out new products. So in 1975, Franz and his son Roland Mack. Roland is the one who we have now, who likes to put himself into every single Europa Park attraction for some reason. Is that the guy who made was it like a cardboard cutout? Cardboard cutout? What was the photo where like he was in the ride It's an animatronic.
An animatronic.
It's got
That's
a
even
garden.
better.
A garden of stones, all with this name on it in different languages.
Yes.
It's that guy.
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah, but you can say that about Walt Disney, really.
I don't think Walt did that much about himself. More the fact that after
He died, they did it for him.
started-
That's
yeah.
true. Maybe
This guy's still alive.
maybe Roland should have waited
Yeah.
until he died.
So yeah, Europa Park started in 1975 with the whole premise of here's a theme park that we can test out our rides. We'll see what happens. And
Did it go well? Go down well?
Well, first of all, very interestingly, it's called Europa Park because there's like a sense of wanting to unite Europe at the time. It's really
That's a bit
complicated and this
awkward.
convoluted backstory of why it was named that, and it had something
Isn't
to
it
do
just
with...
because Epcot's a thing?
No. Yeah, I mean, I think it has some ties with the original location that they wanted to put it in was called like Europa Lake or something.
What a weird name
I
for a
can't
lake,
remember.
man.
I didn't include it in the script because it was just a bit convoluted.
So they called it Europa Park.
Yeah.
So the premise was that it's going to be themed to like different European countries. Or did they go in like just calling it Europa and they didn't even know what they were going to do?
I think it was the latter, what you said.
You are joking.
The second, because they didn't really start beefing up areas until quite a way in.
So they just went, let's call it Europa Park and just like, play around with some rides in it. And then eventually they went, oh, do you know what we could do here? We could theme it to Europe. That's hilarious.
Yeah. But it was a success really straight away. 400,000 people visited in the first year alone.
Okay.
So
what was there when they opened it then?
some rides.
Not a lot, just some random. Like, did they start testing stuff from day one, or did they just go, let's just put a couple of our like normal model rides that we already have in there, and then we can gradually do it over time?
Well, it would have been a bit of both, right? So they would put, they've got to flesh it out with some of the models that they've already offer.
Yeah.
First.
But then they debut like a cool one.
Yeah. So none of the roller coasters that operate today opened in the park.
Considering it was only like, well, I guess only like 1975, but
Only, yes.
that's pretty long ago.
Yeah. I don't know, honestly. I don't know what they had at the start. Not a lot, probably, but it's only a small park at that time. So they built Europa Park with the intention of putting new rides into it. And at roughly the same time, they debuted their first powered coaster, the Mine Train, at some park in America, which pretty much was a revelation at the time.
Because of the technology.
Well, I don't know, parks just loved it. They
Right.
really loved it. Like, just think of parks in the UK that have a Mack powered coaster.
Like every park,
Old
right?
Towers, Chessington, Thorpe Park, all got a Mack powered coaster.
Yeah, but nowadays it's like a staple of like, if you do a lineup if you're going to do a theme park, that's going to be one of them.
But they were all so old. Most of them were put, like, there's 26 when I wrote this. It's probably a bit more now, but there was 26 in 2018, but most of them were built in the 1980s and 90s. They're old rides.
Yeah.
Now. Parks are still putting in new ones. The Efteling put in a pair of Mack powered coasters.
So what you're
last year,
saying is that they were
before.
like very popular in the 80s and 90s, and now they're kind of just still around.
Yeah, I mean,
but no one really wants new
It's
ones.
one of these fads where it's the hot ticket item. Everyone wants one.
Yeah.
But then
Everyone's got one.
And then everyone's got one.
Yeah.
And then no one wants one because everyone's got one.
Yeah.
You know, like the B&M inverted coaster. No one had one. It was really good. Loads of parks got one. Now parks don't really build them.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you get your one or two parks that are building them, but it was such a phenomenon that it was just
oversaturated.
Yeah,
very
very quickly. But yeah, it's pretty impressive.
So is that what sparked their like success even more?
Yeah, I imagine so. I mean, yeah, it was just another stepping stone to kind of building more models. They put their own one in Europa Park in 1984, so it took them a while.
Yeah.
And that was it's the oldest roller coaster that operates at the park today.
Okay.
And then a year after that, they introduced a new model straight into Europa Park.
Okay.
So they used the park for what it was for.
Wow, they actually did it.
Yes, they debuted Schweizer which is their first Mack bobsled coaster.
Okay.
Often considered to be one of the worst Mack bobsled coasters.
Yeah. There's a pattern.
Who would have guessed? And you know the gist of that. It's like a half-pint bobsled kind of thing.
Yeah, I hate it.
On the track.
Horrible things.
Again, it was relatively successful, but
when you think about that, though, that's a pretty wacky idea.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that coming out. You'd be like, what is that
No, but
thing?
they were doing it with wood in like the 50s.
That's true.
So it wasn't. It was just like, here's a new version.
Okay. It's not as cool as I thought it was then.
Yeah. So they were relatively successful, but similar. The last one was installed in 2001.
Wow.
So no one wants one.
Fuming.
Because they're just not very,
Because they're rubbish, Harry.
Exactly. They're old stuff.
Yeah, but you have to think, like, the level of thrills you get from something that they're converting from, like, a wooden version in the, like, 1900s. You're not going to be, like, making that nowadays when you got stuff like Hagrid's going about. Do you know what I mean? No matter how much of a fad it was, like, it's just like the changing times that it's just not good enough anymore,
Well, it's not in, is it?
Well, it's not that it's not in, but it's just like people aren't going to be shocked by it at all.
No.
Or like scared or whatever.
Probably not worth the hassle as well.
Yeah.
So then they continued just sell us rides, probably building a load of power coasters until the mid 1990s, and then they debuted another new model, which they do have one at Europa Park. I was thinking, they don't have one, but they do. It's not very good.
Was it the first one?
No.
Oh.
They debuted the Steel Wild Mouse coaster.
Okay.
The classic, really tight turns, throws you to the side of the train kind of vibe.
Was that the first ever Steel Wild Mouse?
Probably not.
No.
There's loads
so
of
they're
companies
not
that do
very
it.
like revolutionary, are they? Really?
No.
Okay.
Not really.
They're just chilling, doing
their own thing,
what everyone does.
Doing it at the pace. Yeah, I mean, powered coaster probably was, but
okay.
I don't really know. I think that's the whole kind of vibe of the existence of Mack until recently is just they're doing things at their own pace, getting on with it, not really caring about what other things are doing.
Yeah.
And then they put one in their own park in, what was that, 1999, Matterhorn Blitz. It's alright. The best feature about it is it's got an elevator lift hill. So it goes just, you
straight
move
up
forward into a platform and it pulls you up and then you go out.
That's cool.
That's cool, but it's the best bit.
Yeah.
When that's the best bit of your ride, your ride's not very good.
It's only downhill, mate.
Literally. And then they debuted another crap model, or crap roller coaster, which was Euromere. Again, first of its kind in 1997. The Mack Ride spinning coaster. And
isn't this one of their most popular models as well?
see, now it's relatively successful, the spinning coaster, right? But then no one wanted it.
It's just a slow burner.
It's a very slow burner. So opened in 1997. The second Mack Ride spinning coaster opened in 2007.
Wow.
So 10 years for someone to buy one.
What has caused that then? People didn't like the fact that you like break your neck on it.
I don't know. And then over the past 6 years, there's been 6.
Okay.
So it's more of a thing now than it was back then.
But other people do spinny ones, don't they?
Exactly. Mara did do spinny coasters. And
so is everybody going for that one instead?
Yeah. I think a lot of parks around that era of 1997 to 2005 were opting to go with Mara spinning coasters. The likes of Chessington, Alton Towers, Phantasialand. They're all 2002, 3, 4. So I think
that's all Merlin, right? Oh no,
no
Phantasialand isn't.
There's many other parks in different parts of the world as well that were opting to go with that.
But is that because they were cheaper?
Yeah, I imagine they're cheaper and they were just more seen as more thrilling. Euromere has locked rotation.
Okay.
For most of the ride, at least. I think it is all locked. I'm not too sure. No, yeah, it is. It's all locked. So it spins by motor.
Right.
Whereas the Marathon ones, they're just free spinning.
Yeah.
So they're more thrilling. They were more tight turns. Basically, they built Euromere, which is the worst spinning coaster ever because it doesn't do anything.
Because it doesn't spin properly.
The best part of the ride is the end. Like it actually gets going in the last 10 seconds. the rest of the layout, it's like a wild mouse, but with spinning trains that aren't spinning.
Yeah. That's
There's no
bizarre.
point. Crap ride, delete it. Get rid of it.
Delete it.
I don't know, yeah.
But that model's obviously, like, come into its own now if people are starting to buy it.
Yeah, but now the new ones are designed as actual spinning coasters.
Okay.
Like, you know, Storm Chaser at Paulton's Park is a Mack ride spinning coaster.
So they're free
but
spinning
it's
now.
free spinning, and it has a layout that actually makes it spin.
Okay. So they basically
They made it better.
we made a mistake here and
Yeah.
now we'll just copy everyone else.
Well, I mean, they just improved it.
By looking at everyone else.
Well, no. A park built the second one, but they wanted it. The second one that was built was actually more of a spinning coaster.
Okay.
You know, so I had free spinning, and it was actually designed like a spinning coaster. So I don't know. I feel like they just hit the mark trying to design their own one.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't very good. Perhaps
Yeah.
that put people off. Don't know. But yeah, they built that. No one wanted it.
I'm actually baffled how they're still going.
Why?
Because everything you
'Cause they're
say
selling
is just
other
like,
stuff.
they're just,
Yeah, but they're selling stuff.
Yeah,
Some of the powered coasters, they're bobsled coasters.
I guess.
You know, in the background, they'll obviously have a collection of like other rides that they sell as well.
Yeah.
And obviously their portfolio would have changed drastically between then and now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they might be selling rides that no one buys anymore, but bought loads back then. Something they did do was in 1998 they built their first water coaster
Okay.
at SeaWorld Orlando. So that's like a roller coaster. It's like a boat roller coaster, and
Alright.
it has a big drop into water. It has a boat section.
So
And
like
it's
log flume / coaster.
Yeah, basically. And that was pretty good, relatively successful at the time. 8 installations around the globe as of 2018.
Okay.
It's all right.
Yeah.
And then they thought, you know what? Let's build another water coaster. So in 2003, they built their own, a second water coaster. This one, less roller coaster and more like boat than roller.
What?
In the sense that
What do you mean?
you have these traditional rides called shoot the chutes,
Okay.
which is you get in a boat, it goes up like a lift, like a conveyor lift, like a log flume,
Mm-hmm.
turns around, goes down a steep drop and splashes into water.
Yeah.
They basically built that, but out of roller coaster track instead of just like a.
So the boat's on a track the whole time, but it's
Yeah.
like in the water, like fully in the water.
No, you don't get me. Like it's a roller coaster, goes up a lift hill.
And then splashes down into the water.
Yeah, but it's instead of it just being like tidal wave,
Yeah.
it's a roller coaster instead.
Yeah.
So what?
So imagine a pond, and then you put like a roller coaster track on it with a lift hill.
Yeah.
And so like when it goes up the lift hill and it's in the air, it's not in any water. It's on a track,
No.
and then it comes down.
But so is the
and
other one. That's
splashes
the same
into-
as the other one. The other water coaster is
So
exactly
what's
like that.
different then?
Well, this one is
I'm
just
so confused.
this one's bigger boats. The difference is one's a water coaster that's literally a roller coaster that you can splash into water.
Okay.
So that one's more roller
That's
coaster
the
than
second
water
one,
coaster.
the second
No,
one.
that's the first one.
Okay, but you said the second one's more roller coaster
No, I
than
didn't.
water.
No,
Oh.
I didn't say that.
So the second one is what?
The second one is more boat.
Oh, more boat.
More water ride than roller coaster, and the first one is more roller coaster than water ride.
So the second one is tidal wave, where there's like a trough
Yeah.
of water, but instead of like, I don't even know how tidal wave works. So is there a trough with water with a track in the middle of it?
What, on tidal wave?
No, on this one you're describing.
It's a
It's
roller
just a boat.
coaster.
It's a boat.
It's a boat on wheels on a roller coaster section until it hits the water and then it floats.
And then it transforms into a boat.
But so does their other model of water
Oh
coaster.
my god, I'm so confused.
The
Okay.
difference is
Anyway, it's a water coaster.
the first one has small boats.
Okay, the second one's big
The
boats.
second one's big boats.
Like tidal waves.
Like
boats.
tidal wave.
Okay.
So they're two different concepts, right?
Why was that so confusing?
I don't know. And what they do is they go up a lift hill, and they look like a big N. Imagine an N, like the shape
What are we
of
talking about, the boat?
the second water coaster.
Okay.
Imagine an N,
Yes.
right? You take that shape and then you put it flat down.
Yeah.
The left part of the N
Mm-hmm.
is the lift hill, so you go up, the side of the
Ah,
end.
okay, yeah.
Right? Then you get to the top and you actually rotate backwards. Backwards.
So you're on a straight bit of track
Straight
and you're
bit of
turning
track,
around.
You rotate backwards, then you go down the top of the N and you do like a little drop, which is the top of the N shape.
Oh.
Can you envision that?
Yeah, a little dip.
Yeah, and then you rotate again on another turntable to go down the right side of the N, which is now the drop.
The big drop.
Yeah.
Ew.
So that's it. That's the premise of the ride.
Okay, that's a bit weird.
Europa Park has one of each one. One of the more coaster than water ride, and more water ride than coaster.
Yeah.
And the second one, the bigger one, is way better.
Okay.
First one's crap.
Mm-hmm.
Barely got me wet. What's the point? Second one is actually a really good water ride. I like it. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, there you go. That's 20 minutes explanation on Mack
what
rides,
a water ride is.
coasters. Jesus.
I got confused, man.
So the small one has 8-person boats, and the big one has 16-person boats.
Okay.
And that's what I mean. It's more water ride, because traditionally tidal wave, big boats,
Okay,
right?
I thought you were literally talking about the level of like nussets in the water.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. In 2004, they went on to debut another model that no one bought.
Cool.
They built 2 of them. It was like an enhanced version of a Wild Mouse.
Okay.
You know the Gerstlauer Wild Mouse coasters?
Mm-hmm.
Like Cobra at Portland's Park.
Yeah.
And one at Groenland.
Yeah.
They tried to build that, but no one bought it.
Wait, so before they only did wooden ones?
No, before they did Wild Mouse. So the difference...
Oh my god.
The difference between a Wild Mouse coaster
Yes.
and, let's say, Gerstlauer's bobsled coasters, as they're called, if you think about them, they're similar, but the Wild Mouse coasters only go around, like, tight bends and then do, like, it's very 2D, if that makes sense.
Okay.
There's not really bank drops, there's not really helixes.
Yeah.
There's just really tight turns and just sudden...
It's small little things.
Yeah, whereas Gerstlauer's bobsled
has bigger things.
Sweeping bank drops,
Yeah.
helixes, airtime hills.
Okay, so it's more like a Wild Mouse / roller coaster.
Yeah, it's more
Okay.
like an enhanced Wild Mouse. So
Okay.
they took the concept of a compact Wild Mouse coaster and actually made it good.
Yeah.
So
But they didn't sell.
So then, no, that's what Gerstlauer did.
Oh, sorry.
And then Mack tried to do it, and it didn't sell.
Okay, so again, they're copying other people and it's not working.
Perhaps.
Cool.
2 of them are built, only 1 exists. It done it very good.
Okay.
They continued on.
Mm-hmm. Despite
Trying their
all these
best.
challenges.
Then they built the Young Star coaster, which is like a family roller coaster, nothing interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't really been very popular because the family roller coaster market is very saturated.
Mm-hmm.
So, quite a lot of hits at the beginning, quite a lot of misses at the end.
Yeah. I think the thing is, they had a lot of solid hits that carried on.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then they could afford to have a load of more hits when they were doing mad things.
Yeah. So that was that. Family roller coasters, pretty much, like a few water coasters, but nothing overly thrilling.
Yeah, that's true, actually. They haven't done anything thrilling, have
No. Until
Oh.
2009,
Okay.
when they unveiled Blue Fire at Europa Park. So
Woohoo.
Blue Fire is less than 12 years old. Which
Is
is
this the Giga?
The Giga? What the hell are you on about? What Giga are you on about?
What's the Giga that you don't like?
There is no Giga that I don't like. What are you on
Okay,
about?
I always thought that it was a Giga. Because
It's called-
you don't like Blue Flyer and you don't like...
It's called Blue Fire Mega Coaster.
Oh, that'd be probably why. What's the other one you don't like at Europa Park?
None of them.
That was a disappointment.
Every
the
ride
wooden
that's
one?
not... The wooden one wasn't a disappointment.
Oh, I'm getting so confused. Anyway, so Blue Fire. So it's a mega coaster.
No,
Why would you call it that then?
because they're idiots.
Because they think mega's a great word.
Yes, probably.
Like a great coaster.
Basically, it's Blue Fire is a launch coaster.
Okay.
I don't want to get into this. Mega coaster. So
Just don't worry about explaining that to me.
the premise is that different roller coaster manufacturers name their
Call them
rides
different things.
with different
Categories.
categories of
Yeah.
height,
Yeah.
and it makes no sense.
Okay.
Basically,
So are they calling it mega thinking it's mega but it's not, technically?
yes.
Okay. So they think it's mega height,
I
but it's
think-
not.
I think they think it's a really cool roller coaster, so they called it a mega coaster.
Right. Okay. So if they're not alluding to the height of it at all.
I don't think so, but I don't
Okay.
know. Maybe
So
they
they
are,
just
I don't
went-
know.
Blue Flyer Cool Coaster, and that's like the name of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, unveiled Blue Fire. The main premise of Blue Fire was that at this point in the industry, well, at this point, Europa Park had evolved a lot and was getting quite a lot of attendance. It's quite popular theme park in Europe. And what you see over however many years Europa Park has existed is that they always want to put in rides that have a large amount of throughput so that they can get a lot of people on the ride.
Okay.
So the
attendance is very high.
Attendance is very high, so they need to build rides that can deal with that attendance. They also want to build rides that a lot of people can go on.
Okay. So they're really maximising this out.
Yeah, so they don't want to completely ignore part of their market.
Mm-hmm.
What they saw in the roller coaster space is that there wasn't a thrilling, inverting roller coaster that was suitable
for a child.
For everyone.
Yeah.
Right? For more people than just adults who are tall enough to ride only the biggest roller coasters.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't that out there. There was, but there wasn't that out there big time.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So they wanted a ride that was high throughput. You could get kids on it. Not kids, but, lower
Small
height
people.
restriction. And was comfortable and could go upside down.
Okay.
Right. So they built one.
I'm in, but it was rubbish.
No, it wasn't rubbish. And this is the problem. Like, it isn't rubbish. It's just not very good now.
Okay.
Things have changed so much since Blue Fire came out. It was very good at the time.
So at the time they smashed it?
Yes,
okay.
Basically.
Well done.
Because they put a lap bar on a looping roller coaster.
And everyone's minds were blown.
When there wasn't many out there.
Yeah.
And they not only put a lap bar on there, they put one of the most comfortable lap bars on there.
Okay.
So it was a big success because they managed to take this roller coaster that only people, thought was really thrilling and only meant for adults, and they managed to say, more people can ride this. Mm-hmm. It's really comfortable. It doesn't throw your head around. The caveat of that is it's tame as anything. It's a really tame coaster.
Yeah.
It's not really, in my opinion, it's not really a thrill coaster. Okay. It doesn't really throw you about.
So it's quite gentle.
It's very gentle. The launch is very slow. It's got inversions, but you don't really feel much. Mm-hmm. So, but
surely that fills their brief.
Exactly, it did. And that was the point, right? And at the time, many people were just kind of like, wow, there's this looping roller coaster with a lap bar. Mm-hmm. It's much more free, much more open, much more comfortable than the roller coasters we had at the time.
Yeah.
And everyone loved it because of that. So again, it wasn't the most intense coaster at that time, but it was just something so different.
Yeah.
Obviously, fast forward to today, you've got the likes of Helix, Terran, and all the other Intamin and even now Mack ride launch coasters that go upside down and have lap bars. You've got Gerstlauer who build looping lap bar launch coasters as well. Mm-hmm. There's just so many better roller coasters than Blue Fire out there. Blue Fire set the precedent, but quickly got overtaken.
So, all these rides you just mentioned, can they have small people on them as well?
Yeah.
But what you're saying is, over time, they've become more thrilling, even though the original idea was to make them, suitable for all.
Europa Park's idea was to make them suitable for all.
Okay, but then other people went, we don't really care about the kids, let's just make it thrilling.
Yeah, so there's a difference between designing your ride for adults and designing your train for adults. Essentially, a lot of the rides I mentioned, I'll choose Carnan as an example. I'm pretty sure Carnan's height restriction is lower than, let's say, Nemesis or the Smiler. It's lower than, I think it might be 1.3 or 1.2, right? So it means that, I think it's 1.3, that
technically kids can go on it, but it wasn't made for
some
them.
Older kids could go on it, right?
Yeah.
But that ride is intense as hell. It was not designed for kids.
Yeah.
But some children could go on it. Whereas Blue Fire was, some children can go on it, and it's designed for those children to go on it.
Yeah, okay, I get you.
Whereas now, a lot of the rides that are being produced are punchy, really punchy, and designed for adults, but children can ride them. Mm-hmm. So think of Wicker Man as well. That's a 1.2. Really young children can ride that.
Yeah, but it's pretty mad.
But it's relatively
for
intense.
a small child.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of idea. But yeah, they used linear synchronous motors, which was a technology that was kind of just taken off at that point. Intamin pioneered it in 2007, and this is 2009.
Right.
So they got in at a very good time, basically.
And they smashed it with their gap in the market idea of a ride for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And it's pretty much now the most popular, Mack Ride's most popular thrill coaster. Blue Fire itself has been cloned 4 or 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
It's a very clonable ride.
Yeah.
You know, it fits a very relatively small footprint. The capacity is really high.
In a way, it's like an ideal roller coaster for a park to get.
For sure. It just doesn't do much.
Yeah.
But obviously...
But I mean, it doesn't do much because it's not meant to do much.
No.
So...
But obviously now they've gone on to build Helix. They've gone on to build Icon as well.
Yeah.
Copperhead Strike over at Carowinds in America. So that was their real first step into the thrill coaster market. But it was like a half step in terms of intensity. It wasn't a thrill coaster. It was a thrill family coaster. So like a notch up from what they were doing, but with potential to do more. And then 4 years later, they essentially took the launch coaster and made a lift hill version of it, which they called the Mega Coaster. As it is a Mega Coaster in terms of height.
So that was the first ever Mega Coaster?
Mack Mega Coaster.
Oh, okay. Not the first ever in the world?
No.
Okay.
See, in terms of height, Blue Fire might actually be a Mega Coaster, but it's just very strange to call a ride that doesn't have a lift hill that kind of ride. Yeah.
Because that's one of the characteristics, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It's just, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it does. In the traditional kind of like roller coaster, what we know as roller coasters, it kind of outside the box.
Yeah.
And to call it a Mega Coaster just...
Well, it just fits into like too many boxes.
Yeah, basically. So they built a Mega Coaster, which was between 100 and 200 feet tall. Which is like 33 meters to 66 meters or something like that. And it was kind of like any traditional Mega Coaster, large drops, airtime hills, whippy transitions. It was more of a thrill coaster than Blue Fire, for sure. But it utilised the same kind of track design and the same comfortable trains.
Right.
So it was just kind of like, we can build launches and we can build lift hills. It's kind of weird that they built launches before lift hills. Yeah,
that is a bit weird.
But perhaps that's what they were going for, is they wanted to... I don't know, launches are definitely more interesting.
Yeah.
Everyone does lift hills. You know, not everyone does launches, or at the time at least.
Also, if Blue Fire didn't have a launch, then it becomes more boring, doesn't it?
Then they did something cool, which is Arthur at Europa Park, which is a inverted powered coaster. So your train coasters, you sit on top of the track. This you sit below the track, and it could also control the rotation of the seats. So what it's meant to be for is like a dark ride roller coaster. So you can point people at scenes, the scenes happen, and then you can go into a roller coaster section where you're kind of like weaving in and out of stuff.
It's cool.
It's pretty cool, yeah. I mean, I rode it, Arthur, and obviously it's all in German, so I didn't really get what was going on, but it was fun. And it had some nice sections, but it's a family coaster. There's no thrill involved at all. But it is a really interesting kind of a unique concept. And they've sold quite a few of those, as you can imagine, to more storytelling theme parks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of... there's a park in Dubai who's got one, and I think there's some other ones. So they're interesting and very unique concepts. But 2016 was the biggest year, I would say, for Mack. More recently, 3 new models in 2016. They had the Big Dipper coaster, which is Lost Gravity at Walibi Holland.
Okay.
They had their first hypercoaster, Flash at Lure Adventure, and hypercoasters ride between 200 and 300 feet, so 60 to 90 meters roughly. And they also had the Mack Power Splash, which was another water coaster. This one...
Is it more boat or more roller coaster?
It's more boat.
Okay.
We'll get onto it. We'll do it in order.
Okay.
So Big Dipper, the best way to describe the Big Dipper is think of Gerstau Eurofighters.
Yeah.
Your thrill coasters that have small trains and really compact layouts can navigate really tight twists and turns, steep lift hills.
Yeah.
They built one of their own, basically.
Okay.
With the kind of difference being that 4 of the seats, the edge seats, are suspended over the sides of the track.
Oh.
So they don't have a floor.
Why?
Just part of
For the bounce.
For the get up, yeah. And yeah, pretty much the same premise. And people like it. I like it. Lost Gravity is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is Mack rides is expensive. They're an expensive company. And a lot of the success Gerstlauer have had with these smaller roller coasters is selling them to smaller theme parks who can afford them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with Mack being more expensive, they might price themselves out of a lot of situations.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you end up getting a ride that should be better quality.
Yeah.
But they've got different characteristics. You know, the Mack coasters are generally less intense than the Gerstlauer equivalents.
Is that because they're more expensive and they can control?
Well, it's just Mack.
Okay.
That's just Mack's
That's just their
design.
vibes. Yeah.
Yeah. At the moment, at least, that's just their vibes.
Yeah.
I don't think Gerstlauer's always... They don't care.
They're just like wacky one there.
But yeah, that was the whole point. It's an enjoyable thrill coaster with a compact layout and a smaller form factor.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then Wallaby Holland, Lost Gravity Wallaby Holland became the first in 2016. There's now another one that exists at a different park as well. The second one was the Hypercoaster, which is, again, like a normal hypercoaster. So traditional hypercoasters are just like big lift hills, like Shambhala, big lift hills. You know, you drop down a steep drop, airtime.
Spooky high.
Yeah, their premise was a bit different. They built a ride like that, but they also incorporated inversions. So Flash goes down the drop and actually does a loop. The first element is like a loop, and it was the world's tallest loop at the time. Mm-hmm. And the lift hill goes through the loop, which is pretty cool. But it has airtime hills and it has inversions, so it's more of like a mixture. Mm-hmm. It's a less traditional hypercoaster than what other companies offer.
Yeah. Which
is perhaps why it's seen a bit of success. And they look cool. They look really cool. I've heard some good things about them as well. And they're more intense as well than perhaps some of the other coasters.
That sounds quite thrilling, you know?
And then finally, the Power Splash, the third water coaster. So the premise of this one is it's a launch water coaster.
Okay.
Right. So it's a U shape. Well, it's kind of an extended U. So imagine a U and then now stretch the two sides out so there's more of a gap in the middle.
Yeah.
And now lift the middle up.
Okay.
It's more of a W.
I think we've spoken about this before, actually.
Yeah.
So you go down and splash in the dips.
Yeah, you launch, like, I don't know if it's forwards first. It might be backwards, but it's probably forwards. You launch, like, forwards, go a little bit up the spike, launch backwards, go a little bit up the backward spike. And you keep kind of bouncing between the two spikes until you have enough speed. Then you go back all the way up the back spike. And as you do that, there's a trough of water that's empty as you're going past it, but then gates open and it fills up.
No way.
Yeah. So then when you come down...
You get splashed.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so cool.
So it's like a thrill coaster, but with an ending that's a water coaster. It's very clever, yeah. And they've seen some success with that. I think there's a Pulsar at Wallaby Belgium was the first, and I think they're building some more now. So they're interesting and unique concepts, but it's an interesting model. But I don't.
It's a bit of a weird one to do.
Yeah, it is a bit. And now
cool, but weird.
Yeah, now they offer one with a vertical loop in it.
Okay.
So you can have a version with a loop.
That is a lot.
Yeah. More recently, and kind of the last major thing they've done is they've started to combine some of their roller coaster models together. So they took the launch coaster, took the spinning coaster, and mushed it together to create the extreme spinning coaster.
Of course. Is that just a launch spinning coaster?
Yeah.
Okay.
But traditional spinning coasters aren't that intense. The layouts aren't thrilling because the spinning adds its own thrill. Yeah. If you were going, through inversions and tight elements with uncontrolled spinning, that would be a lot.
You would die.
Well, not die, but it'd be a lot. Yeah. So the extreme spinning coaster is a thrill coaster with inversions and launches and everything. But the spinning isn't controlled, it's free spinning, but it's dampened, which means that magnets are used to slow the rotation of the trains down.
Okay, so you're spinning freely, but it's not as like crazy.
Yes, exactly. So the main kind of gist from what I've heard is that you don't really spin in a sense of that's the thrilling part. You end up just going through different elements in different directions.
Yeah.
So you might go through a vertical loop facing to the
That's
side,
so
and then the
cool.
next element you might be facing backwards. You know?
That's so like re-rideable as well.
Exactly.
Because you don't know what way you're going to be facing every time.
Every time, yeah, you might have a different one. So Time Traveller at Silver Dollar City
is one of those.
Yeah, it was the first one of those.
Okay.
It has a really cool start where the station's built like 100 foot off the ground, 30 meters off the ground or so, and it's a vertical drop straight out the station.
Oh wow!
But as you come out of the station, there's magnets on the side that start the train spinning.
So you don't know where you're going to be when you go over.
Yeah, so you could go over that drop sideways.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really cool, and then it's a double launch coaster.
I feel like I'd really like that.
Yeah, well there's one coming to Plopsaland de Pont in Belgium, which is why I want to go there, because I think it's a really cool model. And this one looks even more stupid and crazy than Time Traveller.
That's my favourite one that I've heard you say. That model.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept.
Yeah.
And it's kind of surprising that no one's really done it before, perhaps because it's maybe too much, and Mack have found a way to make it not too much.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty much Mack. It's interesting. Most of the, more interesting stuff for us nerds have happened over the past decade. Just 12 years, really.
I can't believe that that they've been around for literally ages, and B, that they've just survived without really doing anything like too special.
Well, they obviously had clients who bought their other rides,
Yeah, but what I mean is like they're not pioneers at huge things.
No,
they're just kind of chilling, like selling boring
What you want to
things.
think of Mack is, or I think is becoming more of a convention, is Mack is a refined Intamin.
Yeah.
Where they do many...
Pulled back a bit as well.
Exactly. Well, that's what I mean, refined.
Yeah.
Right? It's like...
But refined means like polished.
Yeah.
But I mean like they're not as crazy.
And yeah, I know that, but I would argue...
Not as extreme.
I would argue that's part of the polish.
Okay.
Is that sometimes Intamin is too extreme.
It's too much.
And it's too much. Right. To the point where it's bad for
needs
the riders.
Needs to be reined in a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So everything Mack does, usually, like most of what Mack does, like a good 90% or 95% is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Mack are known for being one of the most reliable manufacturers out there. They're known for being quality. As I said, they're expensive, but you know what you're going to get from them.
Yeah, you pay for what you get.
Exactly. Yeah. So they are competing with like the likes of Intamin with their launch coasters, and generally the Mack launch coasters are less intense than Intamin's versions, but they're, as I said, more refined and
more sensible.
More sensible. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.